Hi there, this is Brent.
And this is Amanda.
We are the Unreliable Narrators.
Here to talk about the strangeness, the mystery, and the wonder of Gene Wolfe's prose.
What is time?
What is memory?
What is a person?
Is this reality?
Where are we?
Do we exist?
Have you ever considered that all your choices are what brought you right here to this very moment?
Episode number 45, 6 From Atlantis. First published in the anthology Cross Plains Universe, Texans Celebrate Robert E. Howard, and later collected in 2012's The Sword and Sorcery Anthology.
Yeah, so this one hasn't been collected in a Wolfe-only anthology.
Yes, I thought that was interesting and found myself in the position of needing to text you for a copy of the story because I don't have it in my collection.
Yeah. So I read the introduction to the Cross Plains universe.
Okay.
As somebody who lives in an area where a lot of Texans have moved to.
Yes.
It was a very annoying introduction.
Well, mostly because you've been annoyed by Texans too much to feel invested in them.
Yeah. No offense to any Texans that are from here, but like you guys catechize your children where it's like, as soon as they hear Texas, they're like, it's the greatest. And it's like, why? I don't know.
Yeah, I have had this problem teaching. I've had multiple students from Texas who were just very enthusiastic about how great Texas was. When pressed, could not say why. They're just like, well, this is just, we're from Texas. That's why we care about Texas, because we're from Texas. And I'm like, you're living in Idaho because your parents decided this was a better place for them to live. So what is it about Texas? What does Texas have that Idaho doesn't? We have more guns per capita, if you're going to go really Texas stereotype on it. We have public land. Texas doesn't have public land.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We actually have lakes.
Yes. We have water. We have lakes. We have rivers. We have all kinds of wonderful things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So there was probably a good 2/3 of the introduction was kind of poking fun, but also not poking fun at Texas stereotypes.
Okay.
So, and maybe that would have been more well received if we hadn't had the influx lately. But one of the things they're talking about is that there was another sci-fi anthology. It's the Lone Star Universe, and that was published in 76. And that was a celebration of Texan writers who worked in science fiction. And so this one, which was published much later, is kind of like the spiritual successor or like spiritual anthology companion volume. And this one focused more on fantasy.
Right.
And what Robert E. Howard had brought to fantasy. And it says that for our purposes, the single most important fiction writer from Texas is Robert E. Howard.
Okay.
So that's kind of the genesis of this volume.
All right.
And other than that, Wolfe wasn't mentioned. He's called out at the end, but it's kind of in the list of.
Right. These are great authors, and we're glad they're part of our anthology kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's the background.
Okay.
I'm not sure why this hasn't been collected anywhere else.
I think I have some theories, but let's get into talking about the story before. Basically, I'm not sure that this is going to connect with people who aren't already enthusiastic Robert E. Howard fans.
That's fair.
It is very much a Gene Wolfe story, but it's very much a Conan the Barbarian story, I think. And the atmosphere and the flavor of it seems to be very specifically, you're looking for this kind of thing. And of course, it's Gene Wolfe's take on that. Mm-hmm. So as a Gene Wolfe enthusiast, I'm happy to see Wolfe's work here, but I just don't think of it as having super broad appeal, except for the fact that Conan the Barbarian is broadly appealing in a way.
Yeah, so that is the introduction and a synopsis for anyone who hasn't read it. I suspect that's probably not as well known amongst Wolfe's short stories, but there's 6 from Atlantis.
Yep.
One of them is a king / chieftain / military commander. They go to this island. There's a ape that's a king. There's some women. The entire place is decorated with the tribute from many different empires.
Right.
And the king goes before the ape and they get in a fight. The ape kills him or thinks that he kills him. And then as he lifts him up, he stabs the ape in the throat and then kills. There's like the women are kind of acting like shield maidens.
Right.
He kills all but one of the women and then they go back out and he divides the spoils of
with the other men from Yeah. I think probably the first thing to note, again, if you haven't read it, that synopsis covers all of the action. It's not a long story.
No.
And it's not a complex story in the sense of plot points. There's very much an atmosphere of lush overabundance throughout the story. It seems like the island itself is tropical and gorgeous. The ape is described as eating melons like they're grapes. Mm-hmm. He's monstrous. He's not just, he's not like a large ape. He's a monstrous King Kong type ape. Mm-hmm. And then the treasure is minimally but evocatively described. There's topaz and gold and ivory and jewels and silver and crystal. And its lushness is the dominant note. Mm-hmm. And that would also extend to the appearance of the women.
Voluptuous women.
Voluptuous women, yes. A woman stepped smiling from a tangle of flowering vines. Her golden hair blazed with gems. Deep cups of red gold struggled to contain breasts so large they threatened to break the precious chains uniting them. This is lush atmosphere, ornate jewels, and a voluptuous woman all in 3 sentences.
So one thing going back to Thane.
Yes, is our main character.
I already kind of mentioned this, but it's English or Scottish in origin. Mm-hmm. You can either be a nobleman or like a warrior, military leader. So that's kind of the etymology of the name. And he's of Ophir, which is interesting because it's 6 from Atlantis. So the title says he's from Atlantis, but then he's Thane of Ophir. And Ophir comes from the Table of Nations in Genesis 6 of the Bible. And the Table of Nations is basically a map. Mm-hmm. So this is something people find confusing, but maps weren't always drawn out in the ancient world. You'd get them either like as lists or they'd be poetry. And it's mentioned here. There's the pilgrimages to Canterbury maps.
Yes.
And they're like actually just kind of like little poems that are scribbled out. So it's like the places and people that you go find along the way as you're traveling. So that's the first mention of it in the Bible. Later, Solomon has a trade fleet that goes and gets gold there.
Yes.
And then later, Jehoshaphat is going to send a fleet kind of trying to recapture some of Solomon's glory. But the fleet is destroyed. It's wrecked in the port before it can ever leave.
Right.
And then because of that, in Psalms and some of the prophets, it kind of becomes the location's lost. We don't actually know where it's at. We have references to it in the Bible. Right. There's references to it. They found like pottery shards where receipts of gold are
from Ophir.
Yeah. But then we don't really know. So it's a place that was its location's lost, and so it's kind of passed into legendary status.
Right, much like Atlantis.
Atlantis. And there's a Cave of Treasures, which is a later Syrian text, often gets published with the Book of the Bee. So this is a Christian work from the 6th century, and it references Ophir. So it's like their king made their capital out of stones of gold, and it's like, why? It's like, well, all stones in Ophir are made of gold.
Right.
So it's got this legendary...
Right, a land of gold.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. Although all of that backstory for Ophir and the immediate parenthetical, Thane of Ophir, he called himself, though it was not his true name. Uh-huh. So he's from Atlantis or Ophir or somewhere.
From somewhere.
Yes.
And first parenthetical right off the bat, like kind of negates everything that...
Right.
But I found that part funny. So
Yeah, and he's some kind of genetic throwback or time traveler because the cast of his face, one we have not seen upon earth for 10,000 years, a mobile mouth so wide it seemed a deformity, hawk nose, and wide cheekbones. So, he's being described as having some kind of physiognomy that is not what we are familiar with.
yeah, it's like some of it might be evocative of cavemen.
Right.
It's like a lost age.
Right. Or, what I assume this is a deliberate evocation of that sense of primitiveness that you get with a Conan type story, whether this is a mythical primitiveness or an ordinary mundane history kind of.
As he's walking up the path, so it's instead of gravel,
Yes.
it's gemstones.
Right. On the ground.
Yeah, so stooping, he picked one up. Topaz, he judged it, and well fit to draw gold. He breathed upon it, polished it on the rawhide of his sword belt, admired it, and dropped it into nothingness, or so it seemed.
Yeah, what's that about?
Well, I had that question too, because there's the part that you quoted from where the woman steps out.
Right.
The way it's set up, because it's like he drops it, goes into nothingness. And I was like, wait, was the gem the woman and she stepped out?
Right.
Or is he got like some sort of magic?
Does he have like a belt pouch that is a portal to Atlantis or Ophir?
So it's not clear here. Later, when they're dividing up the gems, and when he takes his portion out, like every time he drops something between his hands and it disappears.
Right.
And nobody's sure. So
Right.
first read, I was like, is the woman the gem?
Yeah.
So
Well, the woman seems to spring into being through the flowering vines. It seems like most of the story, there's some sense of we're passing between dimensions here, or there's a veil between, time can stop or space can change. This very wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff kind of thing going on here.
yeah. And her explanation, which isn't much of an explanation, but it's the perfume from the flowers.
Right.
They can cause time to stop and essentially keep her young is what it is.
Yeah, and she immediately invites him to step into the vines with her. So this is a very clear seduction scene. And we're not getting an internal dialogue here. We're not getting his reflections on his actions. He simply acts, and he just doesn't do it. He shakes his head. He says no. He does say that he had been offered the Black Lotus and refused it. I refuse this too, after second or third invitation. Just very much a wall here. He is not going to be seduced.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that the chains are having a hard time handling her voluptuousness.
So the Black Lotus is a fictional plant, and it's actually from Robert E. Howard's Conan stories. So, and it shows up in 3 of them. It's the Tower of the Elephant, the Slithering Shadow, and Queen of the Black Coast. And it's, the actual quote here is, the Black Lotus, whose juice was death, but whose scent brought dream-haunted slumber. So if the title of the anthology didn't tell us that this was a Robert E. Howard
homage,
yeah.
It's right here in the Black Lotus.
Yeah.
I felt like it was pretty obvious from the time we have a warrior called the Thane of Ophir, or Ophir, and a woman in a chain metal bra. That says Robert E. Howard to me, but I don't know if that's just, limited perspective here, or, from my understanding, he invented a lot of these, people say tropes, or he invented a lot of this context and these images and these emphases in something specific like the Black Lotus. It has many imitators. So
yeah, that's also my impression, other than a brief stint reading some of the early Dragonlance novels, which I'm not even sure if those are sword and sorcery. Like, I'm not as familiar with sword and sorcery as a subgenre. Like, I've read quite a bit of Fritz Leiber now, but I haven't actually read his sword and sorcery novels, which he's probably more known for.
Right.
So.
I was going to say that's definitely a gap for me. I've read very little I don't know why it didn't appeal to me, or maybe I just didn't encounter it at the right time, or, none of the few libraries I had access to had it, or I probably would not have been able to get away with bringing home a book that had, a woman in a chainmail bra on the cover. So,
yeah. My library growing up had a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Right,
and
right.
I tend to put Edgar Rice Burroughs kind of in an
Right.
adjacent category here.
Yeah.
And I have gone back and tried to read the Mars, the Barsoom novels, and the Tarzan novels. And like you said, I think I would have been much more receptive to them at a certain point in life.
Right. A younger age.
Yeah. And now they, like, after you read a couple, or at least for me, I'm like, well, I know how they're going to go.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I didn't read them until I was a young adult, but I read a couple of the Tarzan novels and a couple of the John Carter novels, and I just didn't find them interesting. So yes, predictable, you know what's going to happen, or functionally what's going to happen, but whatever the wish fulfillment or tensions that are being resolved in those stories, I don't find appealing. It's, something about a really overpowered character being put in a particular context where they become the object of adoration. Like, I think it is an adolescent fantasy in a way. And so maybe appealing as an adolescent, but not as an adult. And I'm not saying that you can't enjoy these things, or that I think I sound like I'm judging them negatively, as in like they're bad because they're an adolescent fantasy. Adolescents need fantasies, and a fantasy of competence is, I think, part of our, normal emotional social development. But the particular kind of fantasy that it is a very masculine fantasy. John Carter is, and definitely Tarzan. Not that a female adolescent, having been one, doesn't have fantasies of competence. Certainly she does, but what Burroughs gives you is very much so thoroughly male-coded that unless you have a self-concept, a masculine self-concept as a young woman, I just don't think you could inhabit it very well. So anyway, I didn't find them super entertaining. Predictable, yes, but I also think just that fantasy of, like, I'm way stronger than all the other quote unquote men just doesn't connect enough to be particularly enjoyable.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Okay. Yeah. So he'd been offered the Black Lotus and refused it. He refuses her seductions. She says, your loss and mine. And then there's some reference to Atlantis. The smell of the sea is in your hair, she says.
He rolled on her, and his left hand held a long knife. The sea has swallowed my house and my sister with the nation that bred us, gulped all down whole, and is still unsatisfied. It hungered, and we are gone. It hungers still. Know you why we were thus devoured?
And she responds with fear, right? She doesn't answer him. She just pulls away, and she turns pale, and her eyes are full of fear.
Yeah. Earth permits only a certain deviation from the norm, Thane taught her. We were great and wise, thus doomed. Our land was like no other, and held 10,000 things for which you would find no name. My house was not a house such as you know, nor was my sister a sister. Take me to your king.
And that's a very evocative paragraph.
It is. It's kind of a little bit of an inverse of The Princess and the Goblin.
Ooh, tell me about that.
Well, there's a point in it's
Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald.
Yes, by George MacDonald. Yes. There's Curdy.
Yeah.
I was trying to say Kirby, and I was like,
Nope.
It's not Kirby. So Curdy, when they're going through the caves, there's a point where they're hiding, and they realize that they're hiding in a goblin house.
Right.
But they weren't able to see the stones and rocks as like tables and chairs and decorations.
Right.
And to them, it was just another part of the cave, but they transgressed.
But to the goblins, it was their house. Yeah.
And so you kind of get the opposite of this, where Thane's like, well, you wouldn't
even recognize the house as a house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he's descended
Right.
from Atlantis
So
to
opposite of the goblins, where the goblins are just using rocks for everything. And so it's very hard to differentiate between one rock and another. This one's vaguely table-shaped. That one's vaguely stool-shaped.
yeah.
He's like, we were great and wise, and we had developed things, and we had things that you wouldn't even be able to identify and see because they'd be too sophisticated. Much like, the sort of joke about travel back in time and take your iPhone with you. And like, you don't understand how it works unless maybe you're an engineer at Apple or somewhere, but you definitely couldn't describe how it works to a medieval person or an ancient person. And it wouldn't look like anything. It wouldn't look like it mattered. It's a shiny rock, in appearance. So, yeah.
So you say that, and I think about that. There's the video of the woman who drops her iPhone, and the sea otter takes it and uses it to.
No!
He's opening like sea urchins or clams.
Yeah. Because they use rocks to do that.
So it's like a sea otter's given this like a very technological bit, and then he's like, "Oh, look, I can get my food with this."
Well, and at some level of regression, right? The wires that are carrying our voices to the computer that's recording them would be more useful as, small ropes than anything else if certain catastrophes were to happen.
Yeah. He brings up an interesting point here, which I wonder if this is part of the tension of the story, because he says Earth only permits a certain deviation from the norm.
Yeah.
And so he's saying that his civilization was destroyed because it was great. And they seem to be traveling here because he despises this civilization.
Yes. He's then a part of that function of bringing things to a norm, because this is a decadent civilization in a way, or this is a deviation from whatever is healthy and normal for human beings in a decadence direction rather than an advanced wisdom direction.
Yeah. So in that sense, he's acting as somewhat as a force.
Right. He's enforcing that norm that was enforced against him.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's kind of like the ocean. Which then it's like,
he's kind of like the ocean.
Well,
that's a great line. Yes. Yeah.
The smell of the season is hair, but then he didn't give in to the temptation, the seduction. He's explaining, like, judgment came down on us.
Yeah. And here it's coming down on you. He's not saying that, but I think that that's a reasonable interpretation.
Yeah.
Then, he says to take me to your king, and she's like, oh, he'll kill you. Many have said that. I tire with hearing it, and saw no bowman in the ivory towers. All right, your king's going to kill me. I've heard that before.
And then her response is they don't need an army because
the king himself is great enough to. Yeah. I mean, he's a monstrous ape creature, so this seems a defensible position.
And then this is where we get the through alabaster passages, she led him with linked arms. And at last into a hall so vast, I'm going to misprint, Lapaluzili.
That's a great one. I would say lapis lazuli, but I don't know if that's correct or not.
Okay.
I could tell you a lot about it, like where the stone comes from, how it was ground to make pigment for medieval manuscripts. But how there are skeletons of nuns at a convent whose teeth have little bits of lapis lazuli embedded in their, what's the stuff that grows on your teeth? Why can't I think of, if you don't brush and floss, you get buildup of plaque. Yeah. So in the plaque on their teeth, there are little bits of lapis lazuli because lip pointing the brush. So using your lip to moisten the tip of the brush as you're doing very fine work.
Yeah.
And they were painting, and lapis lazuli ink was more valuable than the gold leaf that they would put on manuscripts. It was often used for, to color Mary's blue clothing in these illustrated manuscripts. And so they found nuns that have the little bits of lapis lazuli embedded in their plaque because they were illustrating these medieval so I can tell you, but I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So anyway.
Very expensive.
Incredibly expensive.
There's a whole dome in this room that's made out of it so that it looks like a new sky.
Yes. And it's just this bright, beautiful blue stone. If you ever have a chance to have like a ring or something that has a lapis lazuli stone in it, they're gorgeous. But definitely it's a precious, precious stone. And here it is all over the ceiling.
They walk by jars. There's like rows of crystal jars, each taller than a man. These held the silver coins of many empires, coins heaping and overflowing.
Yeah, and then as they walk along, the jars have gold mingled with the silver, and then gold predominating, and then eventually these jars have gold coins that are mingled with jewels. And so we have this progression of more and more wealth in crystal jars.
Then Thane saw far ahead a mighty throne, and on it an ape greater than any ape, huge and hairy, swag-bellied and fanged like the nightmare dragons a million years dead. It leered and sneered.
This is a fantastic description. Yes, we're getting an ape dinosaur here.
On a throne.
On a throne. Before it, 3 lovely women supported a great golden bowl of melons. These melons, green and yellow, scarlet spotted, spattered and striped, the ape took between thumb and forefinger and consumed like grapes. So we're getting a sense of scale here. 3 women holding up a platter with a bunch of melons on it that he's eating as though they're grapes.
Yeah. So I think you're King Kong.
Yeah.
And I feel a little dumb because like I read this whole thing several times.
Okay.
And the King Kong imagery never
didn't click that way? Okay.
I don't know. I don't know why that didn't click.
I don't know either.
But once you said it, I was like, oh yeah.
He's that big.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on this, because it's got there's the golden bowl, but then each one of the women, they have a separate, there's like one who has like a star, sword. I don't know if these are symbolic of anything. 2 held trumpets.
Right.
2 swords.
Right. And there's one that has a scepter, a long rod of gold topped with a jewel of 10 score facets, the Arkenstone probably. And they were all fair. So far, the only humans we've seen are all these beautiful, beautiful women carrying different symbols of authority or office. And he's ordered to prostrate himself.
Which he does.
Yeah. He refuses the sex in the vines, but he doesn't refuse to prostrate himself.
Thane stretched his length upon the floor, then rose again. You were not to stand, the woman who bore the star told him. By that act, you have forfeited your life.
Right, which he was not warned about, and he just does. And this is, you get that fairy tale logic. Like there are laws governing, and there's no sense of obligation to make sure you understand the laws before they're enforced upon you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, many times over, I fear, since I stand so every morning. Basically, like I always get up. Like this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
No one stays prostrated forever.
Yeah. So you kind of get like this encapsulation that each day you forfeit your life, but you have to gain it back.
Right. I like how this is structured because there's that sort of mundanity that every human gets up every morning. Like that's what we do. There's also a nobility to it where he's not lamenting that he's been condemned to death or quibbling over the law. He's like, by functioning and existing as a human being, this was definitely going to happen. And also just like there's a repudiation of this kind of exotic set of laws that would require something that is, it's inhuman to require that kind of obeisance. So, and the woman tries to seduce him again.
Yeah.
It's like, he's been told he's going to die. He's standing before the king, and she's not subtle at all. She says, touch me, stroke me where you will. Thus you may know joy before death. Like, I guess a throw before you go. I don't know.
Yeah. Everything in the society. Now, granted, we see a very small segment of it. We see the palace.
Right.
We don't see the commoner or the person going out and collecting tribute from these kingdoms.
No, so far as we know, this is all there is because we're not seeing anything to lead to this, right?
Yeah.
So this little slice is all we have.
But this little slice is very much a live for the moment, look at the opulence, look at the eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die kind of vibe going on.
Well, this actually connects with a conversation you and I were having this last weekend about how there are people that have resources and wealth and just do things with it that seem incomprehensible. So there's kind of like this poverty mindset that people have that are genuinely in poverty, and they kind of live for the moment because life is so hard and they've never been able to get ahead. And so they don't think of getting ahead as a possibility. So the next indulgence or the next like thing to distract them from the fact that life is hard. But then there are also people that have enormous resources and yet live in a weird kind of poverty where they hoard possessions but don't seem to get any enjoyment from them, and the possessions themselves restrict their lives in oppressive ways. And I'm thinking of literally people who've hoarded enough stuff that they can't really use their house, or they're so hemmed in by their possessions that they maybe don't have the whole couch to sit on, just like one cushion or a part of a cushion or something.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we were having this conversation, but this evoked that same kind of thing for me. Like, there are extremely beautiful women and extreme wealth just everywhere. But what's the pleasure in having a crystal jar full, a crystal vase as tall as a man, full of gold coins? Like, it might as well be dirt. You're not doing anything with it. It actually would be better to be dirt because you could plant something in it. There's just there's a sterility or a decay about it, like a hoarder's house full of, I don't know, nonsense. So
yeah. No, there is only so much that anybody can spend in a lifetime.
Right.
And at a certain point, depending on where you are in the world, that number changes. But
right.
once you have your basic needs met, it's like, then what do you do?
Right.
And ideally, you would be using that extra to
make something that makes things better for everybody. You know, we could have our quibbles with the robber barons, but at least they felt guilty enough to do things like build libraries across the U.S., right? I mean, at some point, you have to, I would hope you have to, although it's quite obvious from human history that people don't actually have to. They can ignore this thing. So I would hope you would have to recognize that at some point, a certain amount of things or a certain amount of experiences or a certain amount of just monetary spending, like you top out on enjoyment very quickly. I think very quickly in this grand scheme of things, like having access to good food and good water and a comfortable place to live, and then as many possessions as you have time and energy to gain enjoyment from. And we've all got 24 hours a day. That's the only thing that counts, is the time you have to do things. And obviously, we have varied levels of energy. Some people seem to, it's, your mother says, born on skates. Like they come in and they're moving fast and they just move fast through life. But there's still there's a hard limit on how many experiences you can have in life. And so this image of the piled up gold, it just made me think of people who have piles of quote unquote collectibles, or even just piles of junk mail and possessions that they just could never get rid of. And there's just no enjoyment from them. There's maybe some kind of psychological comfort, and there are air quotes around that, but there's not actually anything happening with it. Anyway, he rejects her next seduction attempt.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to know joy before death.
He's told to state his case because the king admires his courage. And we get this, I'll read this here just because I found it odd but humorous too. So, I am merely a poor but honest slave trader.
Oh my goodness. Yep, here we are.
Yeah. Mine is counted, as your majesty must know, the most humane of professions. For profits that are vanishingly small and too often vanish altogether, I bring the poorest savages to civilized lands, and there procure them most useful employment. I beg his majesty to permit me to free his glorious kingdom from the most troublesome of his subjects. You yourself, my lady, would be most welcome aboard my ship, as welcome as old wine and a new wind. even if you came only as a visitor.
Yeah. Okay, so I think in some ways this is the Wolfian heart of the story.
Okay, let's hear more about that.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't think that this was, I thought that was obvious. Severian is a torturer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an argument in The Shadow of the Torturer that torture is more humane than imprisonment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that the suffering is over, like you suffer, and it's the anticipation of the suffering or the barbaric ages that would lock people up and not do anything to them. Like, just like your time is locked up.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first read that, this has been many, many years ago, I was like, oh, yeah. I think about all of the things I've heard about how unjust and horrifying our prison system is.
Yeah.
Which is very unjust and horrifying, in case anyone is in doubt about that. The fact of being locked up for time, your one non-renewable resource. We just hit that. That is incredibly cruel. And it was so strange to me to realize, I think I was in my 20s, maybe 30s, when you first brought Shadow of the Torturer over. So I'm old enough to have thought about this before, and I realized I hadn't considered whether or not it was more or less humane to give someone a prison sentence for time rather than a punishment sentence for a certain number of, lashes with the whip. Or like I had just thought of caning, like Singaporean caning, as barbaric. And I hadn't thought about imprisonment as barbaric. And imprisonment is barbaric. And it's arguable, but it is arguably more barbaric than straight up torture.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Severian's torture context is not like a Singaporean caning situation exactly, but I am merely a poor but honest slave trader, most humane of professions. I take your troublesome subjects and give them useful employment. Now, there are ways you could read that that wouldn't be very encouraging, but there are ways you could read that where you're like, oh, well, here's an oppressive kingdom, or here's a kingdom that doesn't have opportunities, or here's a society that doesn't have literacy or doesn't have outlets for these things. And a slave trader can come and take people and put them in a context where they have better opportunities. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with Thane of Ophir's, assessment of the situation, but it's one of those inversions where you're like, oh, I assumed slave trading was always what the American slave trade was, or I say always, could only be. This is a fantasy world. We can make up a whole bunch of things, but kidnapping a free and independent and noble person and putting them in terrible conditions. But Thane at least seems to believe that his role is to take people out of a situation where they're non-functional and put them into a situation where they could be functional. And I just thought that was a really interesting inversion, not one I would have thought of. And very Wolfian.
Yeah. I'm thinking, I'm running through the schedule in my mind. I'm like, this better not be our Juneteenth episode.
Oh my goodness.
It's bad.
That would be very bad. Whatever we do, we should not. A good but honest slave trader. Obviously, in a fantasy world where it's not chattel slavery and it's not racially based, and you're talking about getting out of one really shitty situation and into maybe a slightly less shitty one. That's the context here.
Yeah.
Cancel me if you have to.
Well, I'd prefer not to.
Okay.
They go back and forth about, did he bring any wealth? And it's all under the sea,
right,
at this point.
Yeah.
And
if he brought turquoise or jasper,
bullion. Had I such things, Thane said, I should buy myself a fair estate in some dull land of peace and plenty, and there dream of home.
Yeah. Like, what if I was wealthy, I wouldn't be here bribing your king for his favor. I'd be living out my peaceful existence.
Which, if we kind of pair that with what you were saying about, like, you can only hoard and use so much.
Right.
He doesn't want to live here.
No.
But what he wants to go to some place that, it's peaceful and wealthy. And
then he can remember his drowned home.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, all that context with there where it's like, well, commerce requires stability. And
right.
Like you can't have a market can't have a great market without like peace in the land.
Right.
So. Yeah.
But then apparently the king wishes him to understand that gold and gems and all such things draw fair women, even as the topaz you stole draws gold. So apparently topaz has the power of bringing gold after it. So I guess I'm going to go buy myself a topaz necklace or something one of these days.
I think what he means is that if you find a topaz and you cut it and like make it so you can see the beauty of the gem, then people will want to buy it.
Okay.
And then like if you buy it, then you're going to want to put it in a setting so you can wear it.
Put gold around it.
Yeah, or display it.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that's where he's going with it.
Right, but then it makes women the wealth and the setting for the gold and gems.
Which, like, I can partially see if you're get that male, what did you call the Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff? The adolescent male.
Yeah, power fantasy.
Power fantasy, because I mean, there's a reason why most adolescent men aren't married super young,
right?
Because they have no expertise, they have no like wealth, and they have no ability to. Well,
no, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because there's a comedian I believe his name is Marcelo Hernandez, so I'm giving credit where credit is due, but he has a stand-up bit about how when you see a normal-looking guy or an average-looking guy with a beautiful woman, men think, oh, he must be wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And the comedian says, no, that's a guy who has follow-up questions. That's a guy who remembers the names of her friends. And it's a great joke because that adolescent male fantasy is, oh, if I were wealthy or very, very strong or very, very good looking, then the beautiful girl would be interested in me. And I'm not saying that that's not real on some level, because it really is on some level. However, the vast majority of romantic relationships are, this person is like connects with me as a human being. Like that's actually what we want. I think I'm willing to stand behind that. A healthy human being wants another healthy human being that pays attention to them as a whole human being. And this sort of traffic in externalities is a substitute for that if you can't get it, or if you can't come to an awareness of it yourself. And so, yeah, gold and gems draw fair women. Follow-up questions are pretty great too.
Controversial hot take.
I know.
Healthy relationships are not about superficiality. We may have to cut this.
I don't know. Yeah. This'll be what gets us canceled. Let's not run it on Valentine's Day.
The ape was rising, a beast to shake the world. Thane, who had known many kings and many governments, reflected that this one was at least honest.
Yeah.
So there's a weird, like, might makes right. Is at least more honest than
right. Cloaking might in false words that sound better, but still essentially functioning like, oh, I have the power to do this, therefore I can get away with it. Pity the society where hypocrisy is no longer necessary. Sorry. I know we're trying to be very evergreen here. No commentary on current events. Yeah. And then the women try to grab him, right? And the ape hits him.
Yeah.
Fourth blow landed, flinging him as far as a strong man might cast a spear, which is pretty far if you've ever been to a good track and field event where they still throw the javelin. There he lay motionless, his blood staining the chalcedony slabs.
So one of the women who had held the bull picked up Thane's sword and offered it to the ape.
Yeah, so she's like, okay, you can stab him to end it, but the ape doesn't use the weapon.
Yeah.
The ape just uses his force, and he picks up Thane, holding him as a child might hold a broken doll, that's a very good evocative image. One by one, the ape exhibited Thane's body to the women. First to her who bore the star, then to her who had 3 times held Thane's arm and offered herself to him. That's my parenthetical. And last to her who held Thane's sword. The ape's eyes were full of questions, for beasts no more than men understand death.
Which is interesting. There's a double meaning here.
Yes.
Like, men don't understand where they go after they die.
Yes.
But then we also have he's not actually dead.
Yeah. No, he's limp, or he seems like a broken doll to the ape, and to the women too. They seem to think that he's dead. He will not move again, the woman who held Thane's sword declared. His spirit has flown, O king. So the woman who had lived for centuries among flowering vines seconded her. His life has been added to your own, the woman who bore the star assured the ape.
When the last had spoken, the ape raised Thane's body to its own face that it might sniff it. And as it did, Thane's left hand drew the long knife and plunged it into the ape's throat.
Yeah, so either Thane was severely wounded and just coming to, or he was play acting on some level, like, oh no, I'm helpless, pick me up and carry me close to your vulnerable parts, Mr. Ape.
Yeah. So I'll save this question for after we're done.
Yeah. And then basically all the women are either killed, it seems pretty clear, by Thane, although it doesn't say that outright, or fled, so some of them run away. She who had thrice held his arm kissed his feet and begged her life.
So we do get a little bit of, he has no army, but there's like some shield maiden, like they're not even though they're dressed provocatively.
Yeah, they're not helpless.
They're not helpless, and they actually can't fight. They fought against him.
Yeah, they tried to hold Thane down and tried to prevent him from fighting, and they were obviously at least somewhat successful because the ape was able to hit him.
Yeah. And
then he fights them, and some of them die, some of them flee, and only the one who kept begging for his attention is left.
Yeah. So rise, he said. She did not dare. I am your slave. Use me, sell me, only spare me. And it's like, he wipes his sword. Will you obey me in all things? I will. I swear it. Am I not fair?
You are a delight to the eye and no doubt to the hands. I only wish your own were larger. Hold them out. So basically he uses her to carry treasure. Yeah. If you had bigger hands, we could carry more treasure. Yeah. And then they go out. He takes some things. She carries some treasure. He bled and he limped, but he grinned as well. So he's satisfied with his victory here. They get out beyond the ivory towers. He calls his crew, then portions out the hoard. And this, you referenced this earlier. Then Thane himself took those that had shone in her hair. They vanished between his hands, and where they went, no living man can say. So this vanishing treasure. And then there's this conversation between him and between all 6 from Atlantis. She is fair to look upon, he told the 5 who had filled pockets and pouches with jewels, but she has been the concubine of an ape. Will you have her to wife? One by one they shook their heads. Nor will I, he told her. Go, I leave you to the years. So he doesn't end up taking her as a slave. Nobody wants her. And that's the end.
Yeah.
So what were you going to save?
Well, there's a bit, because, okay, so beasts no more than men understand death. And then one of the women says, his life has been added to your own.
Yes.
So that ape is taking his life in some way that seems to be more than the literal.
Yes.
And then you get him, he bled and he limped out.
Right.
So at this point, I was like, is Thane Jesus? It's kind of the...
Okay. Well, help me out here. I did not think is Thane Jesus, but...
Well, because he goes in and he's a enticing object himself.
Right.
And this ape king wants to add his life force to take it. And then, like you said, he either fakes death or he's wounded where he's almost dead.
Right.
And then that's when he strikes.
So this is the harrowing of hell.
Maybe.
Okay.
Like in one sense,
structurally, it's there.
I believe it's the harrowing of hell in the same way that you can say that the Alzabo feast is
the Eucharist.
Is the Eucharist.
Yes,
like
yes.
it's there, but it's not.
Well, that's not the point.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think.
I don't think it's the point.
But this is Wolfe's imagination. Like all stones are claws or all thorns are claws because they've dropped from the hand of the pan creator. All near-death experiences are okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and he's limping, right? So and he's bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of the things I was thinking about is the ape is very much, because he says he'd known many kings and governments, but this one was more honest.
Yeah.
So then you get this. He's overthrown this kingdom, this government. And then they divvy up the spoils. And this comes back to my question, like, is he the force of judgment?
Right.
Much like the sea judged Atlantis, or
right.
Like it deviated from the norm.
Right.
Now he's here to fix this deviation.
Right.
Like in one sense, there could be a temptation to, well, now we have all these spoils, we can recreate Atlantis,
right.
And we could, like, these women,
right,
could be part of the new dynasty, like,
right?
If they marry these women,
right,
they've been part of a government that has been judged,
right,
and they're there as part of the judgment of this, and so it's like it seems like they have to reject any of them to take them as wives.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely there's a pretty thorough repudiation of this world, and so that sense that this leveling or course correcting of Earth is, I think that's an intentional reading, that it's Thane's responsibility to bring, and maybe this is like, your society went too far, and so now you have to. Like you have to go and correct other people's errors in a different direction. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know either. Because then if you kind of step back and think about it, it's like, okay, well, if the people from Atlantis were dispersed, so then you have that advanced knowledge and wisdom.
Right.
It's being dispersed out into the norm. But then you have them, I'm shorthanding here. I was going to say plunder the Egyptians, which now I'm quoting from the Pentateuch, where the Israelites, after they had been enslaved, they took the gold of the Egyptians on the way to the Promised Land
as payment for their slavery, and also
so
sort of an intellectual redistribution of wealth kind of thing.
But then also like a literal redistribution, because they've divvied up treasure that they've taken. They haven't taken. They don't go back for more.
No, it's her hands, what she can carry in her hands.
And they seem to be satisfied with that. So
yeah,
and then that's gonna, wherever they end up, like that's
right.
So you kind of seem to have two. You have a very wise and advanced civilization, then you have like this decadent,
barbaric decadence.
Yeah,
that has to be addressed barbarically.
Yeah.
Which then makes me think that perhaps that whole slave trader thing is part of the, like, he's trying to use terminology that would connect with their experience of the world in order, like when he said, I'm a slave trader, he might be saying, I'm a liberator of people into healthy egalitarian societies, but you can't communicate to people who only understand slavery and dominance, because he doesn't take the woman. And it's not because she wouldn't make a slave. It's because no one wants her for a wife. It may be tenuous to say that Thane is a Jesus figure, but marriage as the only appropriate relationship between a man and a woman is a very Christian cultural view.
So to kind of dovetail what you just said there, because at the beginning he says, and we have 1,000 things for which you have no name.
Right.
Now that I think about it, I do agree with what you're saying, where he may be just telling his story in a way that they can understand, because
Right.
if they have no knowledge beyond domination and possession,
Then the only terminology available is master and slave, king and subject. Not, I'm here to teach your people that relationships of mutual consent and independence are anyway.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
then it's, I leave you to the years.
Yes.
So
yeah.
she's free to live out her life
Yeah.
however she sees fit.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you have other thoughts? Other comments before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I feel like I went into this one like not quite knowing what we would talk about.
I felt the same way. Like, okay, there's a few details here that, technical things to research or references to talk about, but what is the overall theme? But it's always this way with Wolfe. You're like, oh, he's saying this, or oh, it's possible to read a meta commentary on human societies here, and he does it while using all of the furniture of a sword and sorcery story, including the gratuitous sexiness of certain female characters and the gratuitous obeisance of certain characters. He takes that, and I think he's saying something about to volunteer to be a slave or to accept someone's slavery is not fully human. So anyway.
So are you postulating that authors that write the types of things that do not, I don't know what I want to, like, I kind of want to say rise above just mere genre tropes,
Right.
which isn't quite what I want to say, but I think it's a shorthand of getting at what I want. Are you saying that they may be, it's not a problem with the tool set? You can have sword and sorcery, but if
Yes.
you lack a vision of the world or an understanding of the world that allows you to imagine, it doesn't matter if you use the tropes of sword and sorcery, like whatever you say is just going to come across as...
No, I think I'm very much saying that both as a writer and as a reader. So if you go to a book for a certain set of tropes, you are looking for a certain set of experiences or a certain... I think experiences is too big of a word. You're looking for a certain set of sensations that these aesthetic furnitures give you. You want to feel the things that a picture of a busty woman in chainmail evoke, or you want to feel, or like this can be true of a lot of things, other tropes as well. You want something that looks cozy or feels cozy. You want very predictable notes or story beats. Then you're not engaging with it fully as a human being. Like it does. The furniture doesn't matter. Like it does in some sense. Some people like some kinds of furniture better than others, but that's only the veneer of the situation. A sword and sorcery story with all of the silliness, metal bikini or whatever. Sorry, I keep talking about the chainmail bra. It's just a very distinct image.
It is.
The swords and the wands and the robes of the wizard, because the robes of the wizard don't matter. Gandalf isn't his hat or his robes, which is, I think, very clear from reading the story. It's the being. It's the how are you in the world? Who is Thane, and what are his actions and choices, and what is his context, and in what ways does the story come together to present this? So yeah, I think so.
It seems like a good spot to end.
All
I
right.
don't think I can top that. So.
Okay. Well, in that case, the unreliable narrators are Amanda Patchen and Brent Towle. And as Gene Wolfe said, fear is like those diseases that disfigure the face with running sores. One becomes almost more afraid of their being seen than of their source, and comes to feel not only disgraced, but defiled.